My name is Maris Delaney. I turned 16 this morning, though it doesn't feel like a birthday. I'm not the kind of girl who makes a fuss. I keep my head down. Work hard at school, stay out of trouble. But a part of me still hoped for something small. A cake, a card, even a smile. Instead, my mother set a black garbage bag on the kitchen floor with a thud. She didn't even look at me when she said it. "We only adopted you for the government money. Maris, that's over now. You need to go." Her words sliced through me, sharp and practiced, like she'd been rehearsing for this day. My stepfather, though I'd always called him Dad, sat slouched at the table, eyes fixed on his coffee mug. He didn't argue. He didn't even look up. The bag leaned against the white wall like something rotting, swollen with my clothes and whatever scraps of a life she'd decided were mine. 16 years reduced to a plastic sack. I wanted to say something, to demand why, but my throat locked. The pieces of my childhood rearranged themselves in an instant cold dinners, silence at school concerts, birthdays that passed with nothing but a store-bought card. I'd told myself they just weren't affectionate people. Now I understood. I had never been a daughter, only a line item on a ledger. My mother tapped a folded pamphlet on the counter. Neat and precise as always. Youth shelter downtown. They'll take you. I picked up the bag. It was lighter than I expected. When the front door shut behind me, the sound was final. The air smelled of azaleas blooming along the Savannah sidewalks, sweet and careless. I clutched the plastic handles tighter and started walking. My name is Maris Delaney, 16. Quiet. The kind of girl who never raises her voice in class and always has her homework done. Tonight, though, none of that matters. I'm standing on the porch of my friend Lila's house with the garbage bag at my feet, praying her mother will say yes. Her mother opens the door in her work scrubs, eyes widening when she sees me. I blurt out the truth before I lose courage. My parents kicked me out, just for a night. I need a place to sleep. She glances over her shoulder. I hear Lila calling from inside, asking who's there. For a second, I think she'll let me in, but then her voice softens. Too kind. Maris. I'm sorry. We can't get involved. She presses a 20 into my palm, closes the door, and the porch light clicks off. The silence feels heavier than the bag I dragged down the street. By the time I reach the youth shelter near River Street, the night air has cooled and my legs ache. A volunteer with tired eyes takes my name and hands me a thin blanket. Inside, rows of metal bunk beds line the room. Everyone filled. A girl no older than me shifts under a donated quilt, her backpack clutched to her chest like armor. The smell is a mix of disinfectant and sweat. Dinner is already over, but someone sets down a tray with a half sandwich and an apple. As I eat, I remember birthdays past Beverly sliding a generic card across the table, Harold nodding without looking up from the TV. At the time, I told myself it was just their way. Now I see it clearly. Affection was never missing by accident. It was withheld, calculated. I curl into the bunk offered to me, blanket scratchy against my cheek, around me. Whispers fade into restless breathing. Sleep doesn't come easy, but morning will. Whether I'm ready or not, the shelter had a rule be out by 8 each morning. So I walked the streets of Savannah with my garbage bag, trying to look like a girl headed somewhere on purpose. The library became my refuge. Its cool air and quiet stacks made me feel less like a stray. That afternoon, I sat on the steps, eating crackers I'd saved from the shelter breakfast, when a shadow fell across me. I looked up and saw a man in a gray suit, too polished for this side of town. He held a leather satchel in one hand and studied me with steady eyes. "Are you Maris Delaney?" he asked. My chest tightened. I gripped the bag at my feet. "Who's asking?" He reached into his pocket slowly, pulling out a wallet with an identification card. Vincent Morales, private investigator. The seal looked official, the photo real, but my instincts screamed to run. "You've got the wrong person," I muttered, standing. "I've been searching for you," he said. voice calm, patient. For a long time. Every muscle in me tensed. People at the shelter warned about men who promised things to desperate girls. My legs shifted, ready to sprint down Bull Street and disappear into the crowd. But then he said, "Your biological father spent years trying to find you." The words stopped me cold. My ears rang, as if the city sounds had vanished. I turned slowly. "What did you say?" Vincent's face softened. He hired investigators, lawyers, anyone who might break through sealed adoption files. He never gave up. I wanted to believe him, but disbelief tangled with anger. My so-called parents had never once spoken of him. "Why would you think I'd fall for that? Because I have proof," Vincent said gently. He tapped the satchel. Letters, documents, his final instructions. He wanted you to know the truth. The world tilted beneath me. For 16 years, I'd been told I was unwanted, a burden bought with state checks. Now, a stranger stood on the library steps, telling me someone had searched, someone had cared, and I wasn't sure whether to run from him or toward the truth waiting in his hands. Vincent suggested we sit on the shaded side of the library steps. I stayed near the railing, my garbage bag between us like a wall. He didn't push closer, just opened his satchel and pulled out a neat folder. "Your father's name was Thomas Brennan," he began. "He built an oil company from nothing, but what mattered more to him was finding you. He never stopped trying. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Vincent said it, careful, weighted, made my stomach knot. I thought of Beverly's gray eyes staring past me, of Harold's silence. They had never spoken of anyone else. I shook my head. "You must be mistaken." "If he cared, why didn't he come?" Vincent's expression changed. The way people look before delivering news they wish they didn't have to. He tried. The adoption records were sealed. And your guardians fought every attempt to reach you. He spent years, millions of dollars, chasing trails that led nowhere. And then he stopped, letting out a slow breath. He died last week, heart attack at his office. Still working on ways to find you. The words hit harder than I expected. I didn't know this man, yet grief swelled inside me, sharp and confusing. Someone had wanted me, but he was already gone. I stared down at my shoes, scuffed and gray from miles of walking. "So why are you here?" Vincent opened the folder and slid out a sealed envelope. Heavy cream paper. My name written in careful ink across the front. "He left this for you with his attorney. His last letter. He wanted you to hear his voice, even if he couldn't be the one to hand it to you." I traced the lettering with my finger. It didn't look like the cold. Efficient writing Beverly used on grocery lists. It looked alive, hurried, human. For the first time since stepping out of that house with a garbage bag, I felt something shift, like a door cracking open to a room I hadn't known existed. Inside that envelope was a truth I'd been denied all my life, waiting for me to be brave enough to open it. Vincent arranged to take me to the law office that same afternoon. I almost backed out, afraid of what might wait inside that envelope. But something in me knew I couldn't turn away. The office sat high above the river, glass walls catching the late sunlight. A woman in a navy suit greeted us in the lobby. "Ms. Delaney." Her voice was calm, precise. "I'm Eleanor Chin, your father's attorney." She led us into a conference room and set the envelope on the polished table. "Your father left instructions," she said gently. "There is something you need to see." We rode the elevator down to a basement level that smelled faintly of metal and paper. Mrs. Chin unlocked a steel door, and when the lights flickered on, I froze. Shelves lined the room from floor to ceiling. Each shelf was filled with boxes, every one labeled with a year. My breath caught as Miss Chin pulled down the box marked age 5. Inside was a soft brown teddy bear, its ribbon slightly faded. A note lay on top. "For the nights you can't sleep. I wish I could tuck you in myself." My throat burned. She opened another box, this one labeled age 12. A leather journal rested inside, blank pages waiting to be filled, The note read, "Write your own story. Maris. Don't let anyone else define it." I pressed the book to my chest, tears slipping hot down my face. Finally. She unlocked a drawer at the center of the room. Inside were car keys attached to a small brass tag engraved with Sweet 16. The note beneath it was written in hurried, slanting letters I pictured teaching you to drive, hearing you laugh when you stalled the engine. This will have to wait until we meet. The weight of it all crushed me. He had imagined every version of me, child, teenager, young woman living the moments he'd been denied. Each gift was proof of years he never stopped believing I was out there. I sank to the floor, teddy bear in one arm, journal pressed to my heart, the keys cold in my palm. The sobs came from a place deeper than I knew existed. For 16 years, I had been told I was nothing but an expense. And here, in a vault beneath a lawyer's office, I discovered I had been someone's whole world. I thought the vault of gifts would be the heaviest thing I'd carry out of that building, but Ms. Chen wasn't finished. Back upstairs, she laid a thick binder on the table and opened it with deliberate care. "Your father left behind more than memories," she said. "He left you an estate plan, a trust, created for you alone." She turned the binder so I could see. Numbers filled the page, too large to make sense. $86 million in assets, she explained, her tone steady but not cold. "Until you turn 18. The trust will be managed by 2 trustees, myself and Mr. Morales. We will make decisions in your best interest, but you will be involved at every step." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. I had slept on a bunk bed that reeked of bleach the night before, clutching my bag like a lifeline. Now she was saying I owned more than I could even picture. Ms. Chen listed the holdings' majority shares in Brennan Oil, several houses across Georgia and Texas, and something that sounded like a storybook, a private island off the coast, with a small house your father built. The words slid past me like a dream I couldn't wake from. "An island houses companies." I looked at Vincent, but he only nodded as if to assure me this was real. "I don't deserve this," I whispered, more to myself than to them. "I'm nobody." Vincent leaned forward, his voice firm but gentle. "You are his daughter." That was enough for him. It should be enough for you. Ms. Chen closed the binder. Thomas Brennan believed in preparation. "This trust isn't just money, it's responsibility. We will guide you, but in time, you will choose how to use it." I pressed my palms to the table, grounding myself against the tide threatening to pull me under. For 16 years, I had been told I wasn't worth anything more than a government check. Now the weight of a fortune sat in front of me, tied to the name of a man who had never stopped searching, and I didn't know whether to feel saved or buried. The courthouse smelled of old paper and polished wood. I sat between Ms. Chen and Vincent as the judge read through the petition, her voice even, almost detached. When she asked if I wished to change my legal name, my throat tightened. "Yes," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I want to be known as Maris Brennan." The gavel came down with a sharp crack, and just like that, Delaney. The name that had never really belonged to me was gone. My father's name was now mine. I left the courthouse holding the order like it might slip away if I loosened my grip. The days that followed felt unreal. Ms. Chen arranged for me to meet members of the Brennan Oil Board. Men and women in pressed suits spoke to me as if I mattered, walking me through spreadsheets and future plans. I nodded, tried to follow, but part of me stayed stuck on the girl with a garbage bag at her feet. One afternoon, Vincent surprised me by bringing someone unexpected to the office, Mr. Jennings, my old shop teacher, shuffled in wearing grease-stained coveralls. His hands still carried the smell of motor oil, and the sight of him nearly broke me. "Kid," he said, his voice rough but kind. "They tell me you're running things bigger than carburetors now." I laughed, a sound I hadn't made in weeks. Jennings wasn't family, but he had been the only adult who saw me as more than an obligation. He taught me to steady my hands, to trust that I could fix things if I took them apart carefully. Now he stood in a glass tower, out of place but somehow anchoring me. Your father asked me years ago, through a lawyer, to keep an eye on you, he admitted quietly. I didn't know the details, just that he cared. Looks like he was right. Hearing that made my chest ache in a new way. Pain mixed with belonging. For the first time, Brennan didn't feel like a name I was borrowing. It felt like one I could grow into. The apartment door opened to the stale smell of cigarette smoke and fried onions. Beverly stood there, thinner than I remembered. Her hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. Harold appeared behind her, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow from double shifts. For a moment, they just stared, taking in the blazer Vincent insisted I wear and the confidence I was still learning to fake. Well, Beverly said, folding her arms. Look who decided to show her face. We heard about your little inheritance. I stepped inside. The living room was cramped, sagging couch pushed against the wall, bills stacked on the coffee table. Harold cleared his throat. We raised you for 16 years. Don't you think you owe us something? The audacity burned. But I kept my voice level. You raised me for checks. The state paid you $1,500 a month for 16 years. That's nearly $300,000. You were paid in full. Beverly's jaw tightened. That money barely covered expenses. I set a folded document on the table, the adoption subsidy records Ms. Chen had pulled. It covered more than you ever gave me. Food, clothes, school, no affection, no family, just numbers on a page. And now you want more. Harold shifted uncomfortably, staring at the floor. Beverly's eyes darted to the papers, then back to me. For once, she had no calculator, no argument. I came here to tell you I'm done carrying your weight, I said quietly. I don't need revenge. I don't need your approval. I only needed to see you as you are. The silence that followed felt heavier than any shouted words. I picked up my bag and walked to the door. Behind me, Beverly's voice cracked like glass. You'll regret this. I didn't look back. The hallway smelled of dust and old paint, and for the first time, I felt the air clear as I stepped outside. The first house I visited after the court transferred funds into the trust wasn't the grandest. It was one of my father's smaller mansions, tucked beneath oak trees just outside Savannah. The marble floors still gleamed, but the rooms echoed with emptiness. Standing in the doorway, I realized it didn't need to be a monument. It needed to be filled with Ms. Chen's guidance. I signed the papers to convert it into transitional housing for teens aging out of foster care. The walls that once held silence now carried laughter, arguments, the ordinary chaos of kids discovering freedom. I furnished the rooms simply but warmly, quilts on every bed, shelves for books and photographs. For the first time, that house felt alive. We called it the Thomas Brennan home. I hung a framed photo of him in the entryway, not in a suit, but in a candid shot Vincent found his sleeves rolled up, grease on his hands from a rig inspection. I wanted the kids who came through the door to see him as real, not distant. Vincent took on a new role with the foundation, using his skills to locate biological families searching for children they had lost to the system. The first reunion I witnessed was a 17-year-old boy embracing the mother who had never stopped writing letters to the state. Watching them cling to each other in the Brennan home's dining room, I felt my father's absence and presence all at once. I could never give him the years we lost, but I could give other families the chance he fought so hard to create for me. Wealth hadn't erased my scars, but it had given me tools, and with them, I was learning how to build homes where no one would ever feel like a paycheck again. The boat ride to the island was quiet, the waves slapping steady against the hull. I held the keys from the vault in my pocket, the brass tag warm from my hand. When the shoreline came into view, I saw the small house my father had built, white shutters, a wide porch, and a dock stretching into the water like an open hand. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar. Books lined the shelves, fishing rods leaned in the corner, and on the desk sat a small laptop. Vincent set it up for me, clicking on a file labeled with my name. The screen flickered, and there he was. My father. His hair was grayer than in the photos, his eyes tired but lit with something fierce. "Maris," he began, voice trembling. "If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it to you in time. But know this, you were never lost to me. Not for a single day." He paused, breath catching. "Welcome home, daughter." The words shattered something inside me and mended it all at once. I pressed my hand to the screen as tears blurred his face. For 16 years, Beverly had measured me in dollars, shoving my life into a garbage bag when the checks ended. Here, on this island, my real father had left me something else, proof that love could reach across years, even beyond death. I stepped outside onto the dock, the sun sinking low, the water burning gold. The wind tugged at my hair, and for the first time I let myself believe it. I wasn't a mistake, or a contract, or a number. I was a daughter. I was home.